So 2012 is like the year that I always say the RJ Bates that everybody knows now was that's pretty much when I was born was 2012, because prior to that I don't really remember much about myself.
Wow, 2012 was your rebirth. So
Yeah.
prior. Hey guys, before we start, drop a like, follow, and subscribe.
Coming in hard. Welcome to CEO Confessionals, business talk for entrepreneurs, real estate wholesalers, investors, and lenders. From beginners to rising starts to moguls. This is CEO Confessionals with Thomas HIYIL.
Hey guys, welcome to CEO Confessionals. I'm Thomas HIYIL, and today's guest is a nationwide real estate investor, RJ Bates, from with Titanium Investments. RJ, thanks for coming to Confessional.
Thank you for having me, man. It's an honor, and I know that we've been talking about this for a while, so glad we could finally hook up, make it happen.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's great meeting you. Great talking to you. I remember the first time I met you. You provided so much value. It was just amazing. My jaws just dropped, and I just want to thank you for that. I'm not sure if I ever thanked you for that.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Awesome. So RJ, right now you're running a well-oiled machine. Prior to that, what led you to become an entrepreneur?
Well, I had a long history of working for other people for not a whole lot of money. My first ever job was when I was 18 years old. My mom, football season ended. My mom woke me up the Saturday morning after the last games. She said, don't come home until you have a job. I went to the local Pizza Hut that had just opened right down the road, begged the general manager for a job, and I became a delivery driver. Started making way too much money as an 18-year-old delivering pizzas. I remember at one point in time, I had like $10,000 in the bank, from delivering pizzas. It was kind of stupid. I thought I was filthy rich. And I worked up to being a shift manager and then an assistant manager. And then by 23 years old, I got my own store over by TCU here in Fort Worth. And just kind of got stuck in that. I went to North Texas for college, but I just my personality is I loved what I was doing. I was really good at it, and I just kind of got stuck, and I was getting good experience on how to run a business. And then eventually one day, a gentleman from corporate came into town and walked my restaurant. Never had spoken to this person. He didn't know who I was. And he took me out in my lobby right in front of some of my regular customers and said, you're nothing but an overpaid shift manager. We should have never promoted you. And I realized pretty quickly, wow, I've dedicated a lot of my life to this company. Mm-hmm. And it could all just be taken away by one person from corporate coming in my restaurant one day. And so quickly thereafter, I quit that job. And I actually went to be, for minimum wage, $7.25 an hour. I was a cart boy at a golf course at the age of 26. And just tried to find myself, just what am I doing with my life? I've dedicated so much of my efforts and energy to Pizza Hut. And that's when my current business partner and best friend, Elijah De La Garza, called me and said, hey, I've started a business and I want you to come run it for me. And we built that business up to where he eventually sold it for a nice little profit. And that's when Cassie and I decided, hey, let's go start our own business. And became entrepreneurs. 2012 is when we started the business. And that was a crazy year for us because my niece was diagnosed with leukemia. We started our company. My dad passed away a month later, and then my son was born a month after that. So 2012 is like the year that I always say the RJ Bates that everybody knows now that's pretty much when I was born, was 2012, because prior to that, I don't really remember much about myself.
Wow, 2012 was your rebirth. So prior to that, I'm pretty sure you thought about starting your own business.
Yep.
When was that moment?
Well, my whole childhood, pretty much. I mean, if you asked me in high school, what's RJ going to do? I was the guy that said, I'm going to create as a teenage kid, it was important stuff. I was like, I'm going to be the guy that creates a restaurant that sells donuts, tacos, and burgers because I love all of those. I was like, I'm going to own multiple businesses. That's what I always told people I was going to do. It was graduating high school, going to college, and then realizing, wow, there's a lot of stuff in real life that schools don't teach you, that it took me, 8 years to kind of learn how to live prior to saying, okay, now let's become an entrepreneur. And so that's why I have so much respect for some of these young kids that I see now, 21, 23 years old, calling themselves CEOs and run 7-figure businesses, because I know where I was when I was that age, and I was just trying to figure out how to live a life. So my whole life, I knew I was going to end up here. It was just a matter of time to get here.
Okay. Okay. So have you done anything to get yourself ready for this? Have you read any books or watched TV, or how did you prepare yourself to take the leap of faith?
So what's funny about that is I haven't really done a whole lot of self-improvement until I actually already became an entrepreneur. I was the guy that there for a while, I didn't read books for many, many years. I've very rarely ever listened to podcasts. It's just not something I ever do. I'm more of the trial by fire, learn by taking action and learning from my failures and moving forward from that. That's my learning style. So self-improvement wise, no, I've done a lot now here over the past couple of years, but prior to that, no, I just really didn't have a whole lot of fear of failure. It was just, I knew I could figure out a way, because you have to understand, I didn't have anything to lose. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a house. I didn't have cars. I had nothing to lose. So if it failed, going back to a minimum wage job wasn't really that big of a failure, of a loss of where I was coming from. So I wasn't really even that worried about it when we started.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's the only thing you have is like going up.
Yep.
So
Yeah. I
nothing.
mean, we say that all the time. What's scary is when you're in the position we're in now, which is we actually have a lot to lose. Now it's scary. Back then, there was nothing to lose.
Okay. You mentioned you just took action, immediate action. When you jumped into becoming an entrepreneur with Cassie, your business partner, how did it lead up to you picking her to be your business partner?
Well, we were really good friends at the time. Elijah was living in Hawaii. And so friendship wise, I call both of them my best friend. And somebody called me on that the other day. They were like, well, Cassie can't be your best friend if Elijah's your best friend too. And it's like, well, that's not true, because so at the time, Cassie was my best friend. I mean, we were doing everything together, and just knowing our personality types and knowing how we attacked life together. I knew that I could trust her. I knew that whatever it was going to take to succeed, she was going to be willing to give that, just like I was. And so she actually picked me. Funny enough, she was the one that said, we need to go start our own business together. And so a common trait that I've learned from CEOs is sometimes they need that partner that kind of gives them the boost to enact their vision. And she was that boost for me.
That's awesome. So as you guys are coming together, how did you guys decide to go into real estate wholesaling?
So we actually, the first thing that we started in 2012 was not anywhere remotely close to real estate investing. It was, we were doing supplements for roofing contractors. So hailstorm comes, insurance company pays $10,000 on the claim. We were writing up supplements for all of the items that they miss, bumping it up to say 15,000, and then taking a percent of the increase in the claim from the contractor. That was the initial business that we started. And then I noticed that a lot of our employees that we had never sold a roof, but yet they were on the phone with the insurance adjusters, like pretending like they knew what they were talking about. And so I was like, jokingly, as the entrepreneur, I was like, hey, we can do whatever we want. Let's go sell some roofs. Let's go door knocking. So we went out, we started door knocking. We started selling some roofs, and at that point in time, we kind of became more of a contractor than the supplement company. And we started remodeling houses for investors. Investors started buying houses, and I started asking questions. Where'd you get this house from? Oh, I got it from a wholesaler. Go home at night, Google wholesaler, and I realized very quickly a wholesaler was the middleman. And here we are, the general contractor, we're the middleman. And I'm like, but a wholesaler doesn't have to go to Home Depot 27 times to buy paint and sheetrock. I'm like, that's a better middleman. I like that better. And the numbers just really resonated with me. And so we pulled the trigger on it and paid $65,000 for some wholesaling education and moved on with our lives.
So wholesaling education, you paid $65,000.
Yep.
What made you decide? Because there's a lot of people that can't just drop $65,000 into a coaching program. What made you guys?
So that's a funny story because what happened is my mom, when my dad passed away in 2012, she got life insurance money from my dad's passing, and she had money saved up, and so we were flipping houses as the contractor. And so she said, hey, I've got this money. If I go buy a house, will you do the work? And then I'll buy the house, you do the work, and we'll split the profit. So we did that. She then saw a Facebook ad for Flipping Boston was coming to Fort Worth, Texas. And she said, hey, I got us tickets. So we went to the hotel seminar. And then they said, we'll teach you everything about wholesaling if you just go to the back of the room and pay $2,000. So we went to the back of the room, swiped $2,000. And then we went, they taught us a little bit more about wholesaling. And then they said, if you go to the back of the room for $60,000, we'll teach you everything there is to know. And so she basically said, I could put it on a credit card that I have from my company because my parents were entrepreneurs. And so I didn't spend $65,000. I essentially borrowed it from my mom. And as crazy as it sounds, and it's almost, I don't like saying it this way, but because my dad's passing in 2012, that's what led me to have the education that I had to get started in real estate investing. So my mom is the one that did that, and we loaned the money from her and paid her back over the years.
Wow, that's very, very respectful for your mom, and she
Right.
really definitely cared about you guys.
Right.
You mentioned that you and Cassie are friends, have been for a long time. One of the things I've noticed is like friends, family members that get into business together, it's always a challenge.
Yep.
How do you guys maintain that respect and understand it's for the greater good and not have conflict or minimize?
I think, it is tough. And I think we have a special bond. I've tried doing business with other people in the past and it hasn't worked out. We've lost business partners along the way that we've, had great relationships with and tried to bring them in on new branches of Titanium Investments, things like that. As far as me and Cassie goes, I mean, it hasn't always been perfect. I mean, there's definitely been some difficult times. We've gone through some trials and tribulations for sure. But at the end of the day, we both take such an ownership of Titanium and what we've created, and the fact that we know without each other, it wouldn't have been possible. And that's probably harder for her than it is for me, because I'm the guy that gets to go on podcasts. I'm the guy that gets to have the podcast and the YouTube channel and get a lot of the glory.
Yeah.
She not so much, but I try to give her as much credit as I possibly can when I have the opportunity. But in all reality, I don't think that there's a secret thing that we do or anything like that people can replicate. I think it just has to be, it's just like any other relationship in life. It just has to be the right mix of people, like a marriage. And we're just lucky when it came to the fact that we're the two that said to each other, hey, let's be business partners.
That's awesome. I'm pretty sure there has been conflicts that you guys had to work through.
Yes.
And has there reached ever a point where it was a little bit more breaking point where you're just completely frustrated, didn't want to talk to each other?
Yeah, there for sure has been. I mean, especially when things weren't going well. I mean, A lot of what people know about titanium over the years is that, hey, they're nationwide and they're doing things in Hawaii and Alaska and they're just crushing it. But what people don't know about is the deals that have gone wrong, the deals that, we've the multifamily deal that we put down $50,000 earnest money and the lender didn't perform and we lost. The hard money loans that we've taken out that matured and the hard money lender wasn't willing to extend and we almost got foreclosed on. I mean, there's so many different scenarios that have caused extreme stress on us. And in turn, natural human reaction is we lashed out at each other about different things. There's for sure been some breaking points, but no matter what, we maintain focus on the bigger picture and faith in each other, and then just faith in the company that we've built and the core values that we have. And luckily enough, we've been able to push through all those struggles and continue down our path of success.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, that's really awesome how you guys are working together like that through trials and tribulations.
Right.
You mentioned core values. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So a lot of that, it took a while because you hear people talk about it all the time. Right. And so it's easy just to kind of duplicate other people's core values. It actually took us a while to develop ours based around who we are as a company. So, one of those is just, again, coming based off of our personalities. I'm a huge New England Patriots fan. And I always loved the fact that, Bill Belichick made it very simple for the Patriots, where it's like, hey, just do your job. So that's one of our core values is like, hey, everybody that comes in, it's our responsibility as the owners here, as the entrepreneurs, to just delegate tasks. You do your task. Everything else, don't worry about that. It's my job to hold everybody else accountable. And if everybody does their job, then we'll succeed. And there's a couple of others that are a little bit more specific to our journey. One of those is live with aloha spirit. That's based off of Elijah living in Hawaii and my travels to Hawaii, checking on our jobs, the branch out there. At one point in time, we had more employees in Hawaii than any other location. And so I spent some time out there and I fell in love with the culture of what aloha spirit is, and the fact that the Hawaiian culture actually lives by that and looking out for each other and truly just trying to be a really good person. And so I think that's really important for us internally with everything that we do. Obviously we're trying to help motivated sellers. And I say this on repeat. You're not buying houses, you're solving people's problems, right? That's what makes a motivated seller. But more so than that, with, now us doing real estate education and trying to help people, it's very easy for me to just use the platform and say, hey, give me a big chunk of money and I'm going to teach you how to do this. But we also need to have the core value of doing the right thing and truly pouring into people, because I know the impact that real estate investing had on my life. And I want to do the same for people and help change their lives. So that's a little bit about how we created those core values and tried to really dig into who we are and what we feel like got us to this point in our journey.
Okay. You mentioned you're in multiple markets,
Yes.
Many states, I believe all 50 states, Alaska, Hawaii. What made you decide to take that leap to expand your company, and explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So when we got started, I think it was, 2014, 2015, we were doing a lot of deals here in DFW. And a lot of the deals that we were doing were off the MLS. And then we were wholesaling them to out of state rehabbers. So that was kind of our first niche that we got into, because the training, even though it's for $65,000 or $60,000, whatever it was, they didn't teach us how to do direct to seller marketing. So we were taught to wholesale directly off the MLS. So a lot of what I learned very quickly is, hey, DFW is a pretty difficult market. even though we were successful, I was like, there's nothing that's keeping us from doing some deals down in San Antonio and Austin. And so we did that. And then it was, well, there's nothing that keeps us from doing some deals the exact same way in Phoenix, Arizona, and then Portland, Oregon. And because we were just wholesaling houses directly off the MLS. And so that's what kind of initially spurred the craziness of me saying, hey, our market is the United States, not specific cities or specific states. And then, later in 2020, what really kind of created that nationwide vibe is when I did my 50-day challenge where for 50 deals in 50 states in 50 days. I mean, when I did that, it kind of opened my eyes to, hey, some of the markets that we've kind of never even thought about, like the Iowas, where we, in one day of marketing, we got 9 deals. I'm sitting here saying to myself, like, why am I beating my head against the wall here in Dallas, Fort Worth, when in one day of marketing, we got 9 deals in Iowa and we were able to successfully dispo them? Well, let's just go ahead and explore all of our options. And so that's what's kind of created the whole, okay, we're nationwide now.
That's awesome, man. As you're growing your company, the momentum, what do you want to really accomplish?
So we do have a couple of things that we want to accomplish, and it's a constantly evolving goal, right? Initially, RJ had the idea of, hey, Titanium wants to own 1% of the United States. So that, when I initially said that the first couple of times, people were like, that's literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, you're never going to get there. And I was like, that's absolutely the point. Because whatever I do achieve is going to be so massive because I'm going after such a big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah.
That when I finally decide to stop, I'm going to look back and be like, holy shit, that was insane that I tried to do that. But now, as we've kind of gone through some of the issues over the past couple of years that I previously mentioned, I think it's also important for us to look at, like, hey, freedom, right? I mean, purely having freedom to do what we want. My son is now currently on this crazy path of trying out for travel hockey, and he's super talented. He's one of the top 30 players in the state in his age bracket. Wow. And I don't know where this is going to take us, but I know for a fact that I very much look forward over the next decade of my life traveling the United States and other countries, wherever it takes us, watching him play hockey. Because I could do that every minute of my life and be perfectly happy with it. And so now looking at it, it's like, I don't care really about how many deals we do or anything like that. I just want to have the freedom to be able to say, we're going to Minnesota this weekend to play in a hockey tournament. Let's go do it. And that's across the board for everybody within our company. Is that's kind of where our focus is shifted, is just have the freedom to live the lives that we want.
So a lot of people talk about freedom and living the lives you want. What exactly do you really want to do besides traveling and with your son? Would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's literally whatever I want to do. Right now, if you had to ask me, it's like, hey, I want to be there for him. But in 6 months from now, he could be like, I don't want to play hockey anymore. And I'll be like, that's okay. And then it's going to be whatever else is next. For me, he's forced me to get into playing hockey again. So we're kind of living that life. But I know that I went on an entire year on Facebook of making a bucket list. And what this is one of the things we make everybody that attends our Crucible events is truly write down what your vision board is. Because when you start actually writing down items that you want to do in your life, it's a lot harder than you think. You're going to get to like item 15 and you're going to be like, well, I wrote down a lot. I mean, what's next? And you start repeating things like, well, I want to travel here. Or I want to travel here. Or I want to do this activity, or I want to do this activity. And then what's funny is what we've noticed, is when you really try to write down, say, 300 items that you want to do for your life. The majority of them, you finally get to giving back. You find yourself, at least for us, is we found ourselves talking about how we want to help other people, how we want to really give back. So, we've been blessed to be able to start Beat Kids Cancer, which is our nonprofit where we help families here that their families are undergoing treatment for childhood cancer because of my niece Riley that beat leukemia at the age of 3. We're living out that dream, and we've been living out that dream for several years now. And I want to do more items like that, where it's whatever it is that I want to do at that moment, I can do. I don't know what that looks like 5 years from now. I don't know what I want to do. I just want to know that I'm in the place that whatever it is I want to do 5 years from now, I can do it.
Yeah. And that's always a great position. That's especially a lot of entrepreneurs go towards that direction.
Right.
To build the life that they really want. So RJ, so as an entrepreneur, you've been running businesses for multiple years. What do you enjoy the most about being an entrepreneur?
Oh man, that's that's a hard question because there's a lot of aspects of it. I'm, as much as I talk about freedom, I like being a part of the day-to-day. I like being in here. They have to tell me to not be a part of our deals. Cassie will catch me like looking at our whiteboard here and talking to our acquisitions, the dispo managers, and be like, what are you doing? That's not your role. Let them do their job. I still love the aspect of actually doing deals. I love the fact that we're constantly helping people and building relationships. The fact that we have literally helped over 1,000 people that were in financial problems get rid of their house and then turn around and either one way or another, either by renting it out, owner financing it, flipping it, or wholesaling it, we added a solution on the back end by selling that property to our buyer. That's what gives me energy on a day-to-day basis. And as much as I talk about the other items of freedom and things like that, when it comes to the business, I just love making an impact on people's lives, whether it be internally with our employees or the people that we help within our business.
Okay. Like most businesses, there's a lot of challenges.
Yep.
So what is the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur?
I think it's lonely, especially when it comes to the people that you think are close in your life, family, friends. It was crazy to see the backlash, just the immediate thought of, you're an entrepreneur now. That means obviously you've come into some kind of money or you're making more money, and their mindset towards us as entrepreneurs immediately shifted. So we lost a lot of friends, and family. And I think at the end of the day, it became a very lonely place to be. And you see this very common, depression runs rampant with entrepreneurs. And I think that's something that we don't readily talk about enough. I think as entrepreneurs, it's easy for us to talk about, hey, look at all these successes that we've had. But what about when things are going wrong? When this is not succeeding the way you thought it was going to, who do you lean on at that point in time? Because you are essentially flying solo, even with your partner. It's difficult to have that conversation. That's almost like, if you're having problems within your marriage and, trying to do marriage counseling by just talking to each other, that doesn't work all the time. As partners, if the business is struggling, it's like, I can't go talk to Cassie about it, because if we could just have a conversation and fix it, we would have already done that, and so that's probably the hardest part, I think, over the years has been, over these 9 years of being an entrepreneur. It's like, man, there are some really dark and lonely days where there's no one I can pick up the phone and talk to.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? One of your dark days where you felt really low?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was pretty early on. I've had many of them, but the one that stands out to me the most is uh, the fact that Cassie and I started our business in 2012. We roughly started about May of 2012. We didn't start the entity until August, but we were out generating revenue at this time, trying to figure out how we could create an entity. So it's been about 9 years, and then September 21st of 2012 is when my dad passed away, and then October 19th, 2012 is when my son was born. And so that was a rapid change in my life. And I remember there was times where here I am, a new dad, a new entrepreneur, and I'm still grieving from the fact that my dad passed away unexpectedly, way too early in his 50s. And those days where I remember getting in my car and literally just screaming at the top of my lungs, like, who I'm supposed to be able to talk to my dad right now. Like, my dad was an entrepreneur. He became an entrepreneur when I was 9 years old. He walked away from his vice president position at his corporate job and started their own business. And here I am 25 years later doing it myself. And a month after, 2 months after starting it, he passes away, and I can't even ask him questions. And then I'm a dad and I can't ask him questions about that. I mean, those are the moments where it was like, this is not how life's supposed to be. This is not fair. Who am I supposed to talk to? And there was nobody. Luckily for me, I found solace in my faith, and I don't want to get too religious here, but I found my answer through my religion and through talking to God, and he gave me peace in those times, and that's what helped me move through those extremely difficult times, and realizing that my mindset was just broken at that point in time. Sitting there and saying things like, this isn't fair. But here I am living in this beautiful country with the opportunity to go start my own business. And I have a beautiful newborn son that was healthy. I didn't have real reasons to complain. I just was twisting the story around to make it seem like I did, because I wanted to feel sorry for myself. And so now looking back at it, it's like, what was dark days back then probably shouldn't have been. And so I think there's always a way of shifting your mindset and kind of fixing those scenarios where you can push through.
During that period, how long did it last?
I'm pretty quick at moving on through things, man. So usually those are like a couple hour moments, and then I'm like punching myself in the face, like, all right, it's time to move on. I'm really, and this is probably why me and Cassie are such good partners, because we don't really linger on issues for too long. We're totally the kind of people that will allow ourselves to feel sorry for ourselves for a little bit, and then it's gonna be all right. Let's get solutions oriented and let's move on. So I don't think it ever lasted for more than a couple hours before we were back to let's get focused on solutions again.
And you would say that period with your father passing away, you were able to move on really back to business. So did you, a lot of people going through something traumatic like that, there's a lot of people that engulf into something, either work, recreation activities, whatever they want. Did you do anything like that?
What's funny is I think with the fact that I had started the new business, that helped. Then having my son born a month later, that helped a little bit more. But I'll be honest with you, what really was kind of the moment that I really broke, and kind of finally found a little bit of closure with that whole scenario wasn't until it was either 2020 or 2019. I don't remember, but it was whenever September 21st was on a Saturday, the anniversary of his death. And so it would have been the 7th or 8th year. and always a tough day, right? But what made this even harder for me is I found myself home alone, and it was a Saturday, and it was college football season, and my dad taught me everything about college football, sports. That was our thing. And so much so, like, I can't even really talk football with other people because I'm like, you just don't know what you're talking about, and you're just pissing me off. So I just really don't talk about sports with other guys. And I found myself alone watching college football, and it just, I mean, dude, I probably sat there and cried for like 8-10 hours straight, just like really just missing him, like missing the bond that we had as father and son, and not really thinking about it for so long because it happened, and then I became a dad. And so I had to step into that role of becoming dad and step out of the role of being son. And just kind of having that moment of closure that one day, like just really allowing myself to grieve. As funny as it sounds, I probably held on to it for far too long, but I needed some kind of a trigger moment. And it was just that Saturday afternoon all by myself watching college football on the anniversary of his death.
Well, yeah. Sometimes moments like that trigger everything.
Yep.
And from the day your dad passed to now, if your dad was here, what do you think he would think of you?
Well, everybody always says my dad was, beyond proud of me prior to this. I think if my dad were here today, he probably wouldn't know what to say. It would probably take me forever to explain what all we've accomplished. I mean, my dad was proud of me when I became a GM of a Pizza Hut. I mean, I wouldn't. He probably wouldn't be able to control his emotions. He probably wouldn't be able to say a whole lot, just because he was a naturally emotional person, anyways. But I think beyond anything of business, titanium related, or anything like that, what he would be most proud of would be Trinity and Serenity, my son and daughter, and who they're becoming as people, and seeing how they handle themselves and carry themselves, and how much Serenity is so much like him. She's a little walking Papa John. So I think he would be caught up in that moment, and it might take us a while to get around the titanium because, he never got to see him. My sister had three daughters prior to his passing. And those are his granddaughters for sure. But she was his adopted daughter. So I was his only true blood child. And the fact that he would be able to see his blood, his resemblance, his personality inside my son and daughter, I think that would be very emotional for him.
So it's there's a saying. Actually, my wife said that too about my daughter, but said this about my daughter: "You are the father's daughter."
Yeah,
your father's daughter. A lot of it comes down to behaviors. Do you see a lot of resemblance and behavior patterns from your dad to your kids?
Oh, absolutely. And it cracks me up to see it. I think a lot of times we give them a hard time when it's some of the negative aspects, right? He was somewhat of a stubborn individual at times, and so I see that in him. I try to let them know as much as I can about Papa John. I think it's a little bit hard for them to comprehend, like, we never met him, but it was, his dad as dad, but it's hard for them to comprehend. But yeah, I definitely see some personality traits in them, and some good, some I wish they didn't necessarily had to have, but they do anyways.
That's awesome, man. I'm pretty sure your dad shaped you in many ways to where you are right now, making a super successful organization that you do have. As an entrepreneur, I could definitely understand some of the struggles, frustrations, uncertainties, as well as the great things about being an entrepreneur. Uh, do you have any advice for our listeners as they're hearing about the struggles of an entrepreneur, also the pros and cons? What advice would you give based on what you've experienced?
Yeah, the number one thing that I tell people is don't have fear of failure, because it's going to happen anyways. So just go ahead and embrace it as a part of the journey, and just start taking action and learning from it and enjoying the victories. Actually do that. Like, slow down and actually celebrate when you do something good. Comparison is the thief of joy. So don't look at me and say, well, RJ's done thousands of deals and I've only done one and I made $5,000. No, you should celebrate that like you just won the Super Bowl, because that's the first step on getting to 1,000 deals. We did each one of them one at a time. So it's very important for you to slow down and just take the action and embrace the whole process. That's what this is about, right? If you don't actually enjoy the process of starting from nothing and creating it, then it's probably not for you. But if that sounds super exciting and like having some of the darkest days, but also having some of the most triumphant, like victorious days, then you should just start taking action immediately. And like what we did, I mean, it was literally like, let's start a business for ourselves. What are we going to do? All right, let's go out. Let's start door knocking. I mean, there's so much to our journey of literally me and Cassie going out and selling roofs for someone else's company so we could have enough money to then go start our own company. Whatever it took to go do that, you have to take those steps, and it just starts with taking action.
So RJ, earlier on, you mentioned something that you guys have a coaching program. Can you tell a little bit about that to us?
I'm sorry that my sound cut out there. Can you repeat that for me?
Right. So you mentioned about your coaching program a little bit earlier in the conversation. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'm so glad I asked you, because I thought you said culture and it was coaching. So yeah, our coaching program, we actually just started it a couple months ago. We were actually pretty reluctant to do it. We've been asked for years now by people like, hey, will you mentor me? Will you do this? And it's always been something that we kind of shied away from. But we just started it with a little bit of push from some of our friends. And it's something that I absolutely love. So it's a 2-day boot camp here in our office in Fort Worth, Texas. And it's based around the systems that we use, the processes that we built around those systems, how we analyze deals, how we determine our exit strategy, what acquisition strategy we're going to use. We give you every document that we use in our company, every script, every text template, pretty much everything that Titanium Investments does. We give that to you. It's followed up with a personal debrief session where we give you a business plan for your business, as well as monthly accountability for a year moving forward to make sure that you're successful. So it's something that I'm extremely passionate about, because I want to look back, like I said earlier, impacting people's lives. That's what I want to do with this. And I'm very much looking forward to looking back 12, 24 months from now and seeing the lives that we've impacted through this program.
And guys, I'll tell you one thing, coaching will really shortcut your learning. It will make you go a lot faster in your business. And it's something I am a huge advocate of. RJ, it was a pleasure having you come to Professionals, man.
Thank you so much for having me, man. And honestly, you're the closest podcast host that almost got me to tears. So thank you for this interview.
Thanks, RJ. All right, that's it, man.
Awesome.